What's up, legends? Thanks for coming for another episode of the Interchange podcast and jumping on board for our small series about youth crime. Today, I am joined by Mitch Orval, who a lot of you guys will probably know. He's a bit of a personality, and he's also been a victim of youth crime himself. And so I thought it'd be great to bring him on today to share a bit of a different perspective around, I guess, for someone that's actually suffered through the hands of youth crime. To really get some perspective of how that's actually affected his family and I guess how this is actually affecting the greater community, which is obviously what this whole series is about. So, Mitch, mate, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you coming out, bro, and taking time out of your busy day. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and I guess why you're here today, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me, bro. It's good to jump on, and yeah, I love what you're doing for it too, bro. I think it's very important
Thank you, bro.
Understanding, but also not just talking about it in a way that it's like, oh, this is just a menace to society. It's like, well, how can we fix the problem? You know what I mean? It's not
100%, bro.
not a Band-Aid solution where it's like, get rid of them. It's like, what's the root cause of that? And that's why, I love what you're doing, bro. So that's why I'm here. And yeah, I guess my whole journey started on social media, I think in about 2014.
Angry dad.
Yeah. So I've been around the block. But I guess nowadays, man, my life looks a little bit different. I have 2 kids. I've got a partner. My partner has an activewear company. I have my own kids' toys company. And yeah, I actually probably do a bit less in this space of social media these days than I once did.
By choice, right? By design?
Just by choice.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember I had a close friend, Josh, his name's Josh Wade, actually. People might remember him from back in the day, but he told me like ages ago, it's like, when you live through social media, he's like, and you become almost like an entertainer, and it's like your life and your career depends on whether you're relevant or not. So he's like, I'd rather be behind the scenes of it than, the face of it.
It's almost like the validation that you
it
get
is.
from it,
And
right?
I was like, it's so true. And I remember I put a lot of my eggs into that basket of being liked and, what's on trend, what's this, is what's viral. And I was like, it's not a way to live. So I went through all that pretty much during the COVID break when obviously it was quite obvious I had a very different stance on, what way the world wanted us to go with that. And I couldn't accept that, I had to be someone the world wanted me to be. I wanted to be myself, and it was a really good learning thing for me because I was like, all right, I'm going to be unapologetically myself now, and I'm not going to live for the validation of others. Praise God, man. That's
powerful, man. Yeah.
And that's where it just went into a different life for me. And obviously I'm still on social media, but yeah, it's probably 1/10 of what it ever was to me, but I'm still grateful for it, and I still love, bits and pieces, but it's not my life anymore. It doesn't consume me.
That would have been almost like a big shedding of identities for you when you went through that process, right? Almost would have been like saying goodbye to the old version of you, then stepping into this new version of who you are today, right?
Yeah. Like when I look back, like my engine was validation. It was like, that's what got me.
Can relate.
Yeah, that's what got me doing things. It's what got me out there. It's what, it became my identity. And then it was like, when you put your identity in other people, as quickly they can build you up, they can also tear you down.
Exactly right, man. It's like you're relying on other people for you to feel good, and you're always going to be let down every time, man. Every time.
It's good to be in the position and the place I'm in now, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Honestly, there's nothing I would change. So.
Awesome, bro. I love to hear about that, man. And obviously, you went through a pretty hectic incident when it comes to, I guess, burglary, youth crime, and I guess this is such a hot topic at the moment, especially on the Gold Coast, but not just in the Gold Coast, but just around Australia. Like the youth crime, I spoke to Jim Keogh yesterday, who was the ex-superintendent and chief of police, and he was a detective really working with youth crime for a very long time. And he said it's just been a constant downward spiral for the last 5-10 years. It's just been getting worse and worse. And so I guess, can you tell us a little bit about what happened for you and your family? And then we'll get a bit more into it, yeah?
Yeah, so I think it would be around maybe 3 years ago now.
Okay.
We had a house in Broadbeach.
Yeah.
On a pretty prominent street. It was, a good area. Never once did it really ever cross my mind. I wasn't someone that used to really ever think about youth crime or the fact that, I was very, very relaxed when it came to, the state of my house. You know what I mean? I never ever once stressed about that being a possibility.
Gotcha.
And I guess one night, and it's crazy because when you go through something like this, you can remember every little detail. And I remember one night it was a really rainy night. And this is where it was so interesting because our family had just been sick. So we'd all had gastro had come through the house, and our bedroom used to be downstairs, but we'd been in that room for like 3 days, and it was like, we got to get out of there. You know what I mean? It felt like we're just in a pool of our own germs at that point. So we're like
just incubating at this point.
Yeah, we're like, is this just like problem just cycling through the same room? We're like, so we ended up going upstairs to the spare bedroom, and we'd put down a mattress on the floor and then the bed mattress. And Chloe was pregnant at the time with my youngest, now Sonny.
Yeah.
And my other son was, I think he was about 1.5.
Yeah.
So we were up in the bedroom. At about, I'm going to say 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I started feeling sick in the guts again. And I was like, I went to go downstairs to go to the toilet, but we actually had an outdoor toilet too.
Okay.
And I think it was just like, I don't know why, but I went out to that toilet to use it. And I was sitting on the toilet and I remember looking outside and I was like, oh, this is eerie night. Hey, like,
just felt like there's a presence, right?
I was like, this is an eerie night. Like, I just felt like I was like, got like a bit of a shiver.
Yeah.
And I was like, but then when I went back upstairs and got into bed, I was laying on the mattress in the bed. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but I'd done it like when I was a kid, I used to imagine things happening. And I was like laying there and I was like, imagine if now like someone broke in and you were laying there and I was laying here and they came in here, and like, if they walked in here, they wouldn't even see this mattress. They'd probably like fall on top of me. Like, I was just having these like weird thoughts, right?
Wild,
and at that exact time, I just hear this noise downstairs, and I was like, "Whoa, is that my own paranoia? Like, have I just
wigged myself
out?" Yeah. So I was like, "Oh," and then I remember thinking it's probably the dogs. But then at that point, I went and put my hand in my lap and my hand next to me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, both of the dogs are on my bed." And then I was listening, and then I just heard the noise of a chain. And I was like, immediately, I don't know what it was, but I just knew, oh my gosh, there's someone in the house. So I jumped up out of bed and I just yelled, like, for the top of my voice, I just went, "Oi." And as I yelled, "Oi," man, I just heard footsteps, doors opening, doors shutting, people running. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on?
I'm visualizing that at this very point in time. That's hectic.
So I'm downstairs by myself and I'm running around downstairs. I run down into where our bedroom was, so where we should be sleeping 99.9% of the time. Any other time we would have been in that exact room, which turns out that was a room they came in through. Wow. And like all of my partner's handbags are on her bed, laying out. The light was on. There was a credit card on there. And I was like, oh my gosh, where are they? You know what I mean? So I came back out of the room. And while I'm downstairs, I just seen, so we had like a front yard where you'd park the cars.
Just hang on, let me cut you off there for a second. What's going through your head at this point when you've seen all your shit spread out across the bed?
Nothing. You can't, like, I hadn't processed anything. And I'd spoken to someone about it, and they told me that it's like a thing called courage on fire, where you just like go into like
full
fight or flight. You're not thinking. You have this like overwhelm of courage where it's like you're at that point. I was probably thinking my family, my kids, my pregnant is in the house, and you're just like full defense mode. You're just defending your castle. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So at that point, I came out of the bedroom, and then I didn't know where they were. I didn't know how many, who, what. They'd already fled. But then the car, which was my partner's car, lights turned on in our front yard, which lit up the whole downstairs. I was like, oh my gosh, they're in Chloe's car.
In the car.
So I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, ran out the front, and then it was a pretty big standoff where again, by the grace of God, I was too lazy to bring my car in that night. So I actually parked it in my driveway. So once they'd opened the gate, they couldn't get out anyway. So while he was trying to reverse and leave the house in my partner's car, he had nowhere to go because my car
'Cause
was
your
in the
car's in the
drive.
way. Yeah.
So there's this awkward moment where I'm standing there with like my back to our front door, and like I had like a kitchen knife, and he's like trying to drive and get out, and I'm just standing there screaming like, "Get out, leave, leave!" Which he eventually gets out of the car and runs off down the street. But then once he turned out and ran down the street, I come towards him. And when I get to our front yard, I realize, holy, there was 5 of them. There was 3 in the car and 2 standing there. And I was like, yeah, you better get back inside.
I'm just going to go inside and lock those doors.
It's so funny. You can see it in the video. I'm like, I'm going back in.
Man, that's actually really crazy. So like I said, we had Jim on yesterday and he spoke about, I think there's at least 40 people that have died at the hands of youth crime.
Yeah, well,
it's actually crazy. So
it could have been me. He was
bless
about
God
to.
that you're still here, brother.
He nearly got me twice. He nearly pinned me. So why he's trying to run me over in the front yard, and then I got cornered into our trampoline that was there, and he like drives into the trampoline and squishes the tramp against the wall. But you'll see in the footage,
bridge,
he
yeah.
just sort of got out of it. I don't know, but it was pretty close.
Wow, man. And that's just hearing that, bro, that experience. And I've seen the footage, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll put it in here as
Yeah.
well. But that is a really crazy experience for you to go through, man. I guess that would have been something that really was life-changing for you.
Yeah, mate. To be honest, like, we never stayed in the house again.
After
Ever.
that point in time,
night,
you never stayed. Did you own the house? Or
Yeah,
rent
we
it?
owned the house, so we
And
sold
so you
it.
never stayed in your own house ever again because of that?
That was the last night I ever spent in that house.
Wow.
Stayed in a hotel for a month
Yeah.
after it, and then we'd sold it, so we moved on straight away. But then we went straight into an apartment. So we owned an apartment too in Broadbeach. So we moved into that interimly. Then we outgrew that when we had our second son. And then we just, moved into another apartment, and I haven't been in the house since. And even since then, I remember we went away for my mum's birthday and we stayed in a house for 3 nights down in Kingscliff. And I woke at 1 to 3 a.m. every single night.
And that's when this was taking place?
Yeah, it happened at
So
2:30
subconsciously
a.m.
you woke up at the
I
same
woke
time.
up at the same time, and I walked around the whole house, checked every door, window, looked out on the street, would lay back in bed, come back to the window when I heard a car, look out, and I was like, yeah, this hasn't gone away, hey. But
It's
in
almost
an
like
apartment,
PTSD to some
so
degree.
it's like I don't have it. I feel very comfortable,
Yeah.
but I guess it still lingers there when it comes to a house. But I haven't really been, as I said, I've spent 3 nights in a house ever since that incident.
Apart from the psychological effect this has had on you, how has this affected your family and how did it affect your family at the time?
Yeah, massively. It was to the point where, especially like my partner, she doesn't like to be home alone now at night, especially,
At
which
all.
you never really are. She never
Yeah.
is, because it's like I don't really go away or anything. But yeah, she hates being home alone, and that's even in an apartment. So once we were in a house, I couldn't really imagine it. But honestly, going forward, like, you know, we want to live in a house with a yard and all that. But whenever
For
it
the-
comes
for the boys,
but
obviously.
whenever
Yeah.
it comes down to making that decision, which we have a few times, it's like I think we both don't do it out of fear.
So there's been multiple times you're saying that you've wanted to go and
Yeah.
actually move into a house for your boys to give them a childhood, obviously, and to give
Heaps.
them time to places to play and whatever. But you haven't because of the fear that this one event has created.
And I know that if I get into there and I can't sleep and I feel unsafe, then how is that my house?
Yeah.
It's not a home, you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, it was never something that I guess I anticipated would happen. But once it does happen, it can't unhappen. So it's like, you know, I always used to think as a kid, imagine getting robbed, you know what I mean? But then it was like, once it happens to you, you're like, oh, that's real, you know what I mean? And it can happen. So then, yeah, I guess I haven't really put myself in the position enough to go through it and see the other side, but it's, affected us to the point of just our decisions are based around it when it comes to, you know, where we want to live.
This one event has completely changed your life.
Yeah, it has for sure. And it actually changed my life again in a way that I was extremely anxious and paranoid after. And that was when I got really addicted to weed.
Right.
'Cause
So
I couldn't
it actually forged an addiction because of that as a
Yeah.
coping
So
mechanism.
I already used weed, but
Yeah.
like very loosely. It wasn't like I didn't need it. You know what I mean? It was something that I just did on the occasion.
Yeah.
But then after that, it was like I couldn't sleep without it. I was prescribed from the doctor for it, which then led to another thing that I had to shake, which I haven't smoked now for 2.5 years. But
Yeah. Good on you, bro. That's a huge thing to actually come off that and then have to actually face those demons.
yeah. And it was all just, I know, it was just to do with sleeping. And like I couldn't.
But it wasn't just to do with sleeping. It was to do with the event that you'd been through, which then obviously was something that affected your sleep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not just your sleeping, right?
Yeah.
There's actually a lot going on here.
It was a trigger to that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And so thinking about that at the time, like, what were your thoughts around these kids? Like, how did you feel about this? The fact that these kids had come into your house, just literally run amok and disregard for you, your family, everything like that. How are you feeling about these kids at the time?
I had a really big moment, and it came quite quickly to me. But for like the first 24 hours, I was like, who are they? Who's after me? My family? Who's in my house? I was like, I wanted war. I was like,
of course,
find out. So like, run it up. Let's see. I want to know everything.
As most people in that position would have done, right? It's like, how can I get these kids?
But there was a moment very quickly when I decided, like, because, it's like, I found out. So it's like, but then I remember having this moment where I was like, you know what? Like, you're making this bigger than what it actually is because you're taking this really personally.
Oh, yes.
Like they were coming there for you and you only, and to take your car and to put your family in harm. But I was like, they were just there to steal a car.
And why is that? Why do you feel they were there to steal a car? What was that to them?
Because I think that was just what they do. And I think, like, as I said, I'm not the first person who it had happened to. And I knew that youth break-ins happened. I knew that they came and they stole cars and they sold them for money. And it's like, I was like, that's
obviously what it is for them. It's a living.
It's a living. Yeah. Exactly. And I was like, and here's me personalizing it, making it look like they came all after me and put my family in harm. But it's like, I was blowing that out of proportion because that's my interpretation of events to them. It was an easy house to break into with cars there that were visible, a gate that they could get out, and they just wanted my car. They had no personal attachment to me or my family. They didn't know anything that was going on upstairs or that she was pregnant or that I had a kid. Like, they wanted to creep in, take my car, steal it, and leave. That was their only mission. And I was like, I'm making it way bigger than that.
Yeah.
So I just left it alone and I said, that's, it is what it is. We were unlucky, but it wasn't personal. And yeah.
And so with that being said, in your opinion, what do you think is the thing that we as a society, we as a community need to do so we can actually start to really curb this youth crime issue we're having? Because it's become an epidemic.
Yeah, well, that's where I really respect what you're doing, because it's like, I think it's very easy to sit back and be like, to demonize these kids and say, they are scum. We don't need them. Lock them up. Get rid of them.
Children of God, bro.
Huh?
They're still children
That's
of
it.
God.
But it's like, it's so easy to look at it and say that. But it's like, does that, what solution is that? It's like, does anyone know why they're doing it or how? It's like, I know that if I had kids and they were 17, 18 and they were doing that, it's like, I would be very aware of it. And it's like, it wouldn't happen under my roof. So it's like, you need to start to ask the questions, like, what is their family life like? What is their life like? How do they get into a position where this can become a part of their makeup? And it's like, that's where I think it's like, it's understanding the families and the lives that they come from and being like, can we provide them with a better support mechanism? So it's like, that isn't what they have to rely on to make a living. It's like, can we give them another option or a future to create or to sculpt out of this?
100%, bro. And I think that's the big thing that we're trying to do, especially even just with this podcast series, let alone the event, obviously the Change for Good challenge, is really trying to shed a light on what these kids are actually going through, because they're not out there stealing cars. Okay, eventually it becomes a thing they want to do, but what are they running from?
Yeah.
Why are they on the street? Why is a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid on the street? Because, I mean, I can tell you right now, like, I would much rather be in my bed at 13, 14, 15 years old.
100%. So why aren't they in their bed, and why do they have a bed? Do they have a place safe enough to be in bed to know that they're not going to come home and get bashed, or, you know what I mean? It's like, and I think once you understand that and come from a more empathetic position rather than this is what you're doing, it's like, why is it that you're doing this? Like, I think then you'll probably start to see some sort of breakthrough or change or results.
Something that I love that Cooper Chapman says. You know Cooper Chapman?
Yeah.
Get curious instead of furious.
Yeah,
Right?
wow.
Start to understand, like shift the perspective to actually look at what's going on in the lives of these young men, which is obviously what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And obviously with the Change for Good challenge, hoping to get you involved with that one.
Yeah.
So obviously the 4-hour run, 4-hour downhill mountain biking, 4-hour gym workout, 4-hour open water kayaking session, 4-hour pack march.
Wow.
Out of all of that, which one would you be looking forward to the most?
4-hour gym.
Yeah.
I can't run anymore.
Yeah, well, we've got Never Quit supporting us for that, so they're giving us their facility. So we'll be loving to see you there, bro.
Yeah, great.
And which would you be least looking forward to?
Oh, brother, I would not hop in a kayak. Eh? I don't even know.
Okay, there's a story there. Why would you not hop in a kayak?
Oh, bro, I remember one time when I went to New Zealand when I was like, I think I was about 17 or 18. I went whitewater rafting.
Yeah.
And I was like, that there is the scariest, worst thing I've ever done in my life. And I was like, I'm not ever getting back in those boats or any of that.
Yeah, so it's like PTSD.
Nah, not really. I just was like, risk reward, you know what I mean? It was like the risk, man, this thing was dangerous, reward. Oh, I went whitewater rafting.
Yeah. And so, brother, where can people find you if they wanted to have a chat with you? Let's just say, for instance, like there's other people out there that are struggling to overcome that whole, I've been a victim of crime, I don't feel safe in my own household. Would people be able to reach out to you and have a conversation with you about that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, obviously you can reach me on my Instagram at Mitch Orval, but I don't know if, as I said, like, you know, I don't even know if I've personally overcome it.
Wow.
I can talk to you about it and I can, you know, empathize with you. I can wear the same shoes that you've worn if you've been a part of it. But I wouldn't say I have all the tools to get over it because, you know, it's still something that probably sits in a shadow part of me somewhere.
For sure, bro.
But that being said, bro, I'm still here. I'm still soldiering through. And yeah, I think it's something that's happened to me, but it's not who I am.
Yeah.
It hasn't, you know, changed me into someone different. It's just changed me to, I think it's, as I said, bro, I'm a believer of God. So it's like, I went through that for a greater purpose.
Amen, Amen.
And I already know the things that it's fixed in my life. You know what I mean? Like metaphorically, my doors of my house were always open, right? That was the metaphor for me. So it was like, everyone had access to me. I had people coming in and out of my doors all the time at my house. Now my house is my safe place.
So it's actually become your home.
It's my home. If I want to catch up with someone, I'll catch up with you outside of my home.
Yep.
My home is now my safe place.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, it was my door was always open. And the result of that was my door literally being opened.
Lessons and blessings, bro. Lessons and blessings. Well, Mitch, thanks very much for coming on, bro. I really appreciate your time today.
Good job, mate. I love what you're doing.
Thank you, brother.